right now, in this exact microsecond, you believe you are in control. You believe the choices you made this morning were yours alone, driven by a past you cannot change, marching toward a future that hasn't happened yet. But what if the arrow of time is an illusion? What if the decision you will make 5 years from now has already reached back through the fabric of reality, twisting your thoughts, altering your actions, and rewriting the person you are today? For decades, physics told us that cause must always precede effect. It was the fundamental bedrock of our universe. If you drop a glass, it shatters. The shattering cannot cause the drop, until now. In laboratories across the globe, cutting-edge quantum physics is quietly uncovering a chilling, reality-shattering truth. The future is not a blank canvas waiting to be painted. It is a solid, towering monolith, and it is actively reaching backward, manipulating the present, and changing the past. Your future self isn't just was. For you. They are currently pulling the strings of your life. We experience life as a sequence of frames. A birth, a first step, a heartbreak, a final breath. We call this the thermodynamic arrow of time. It moves in one direction, forward. It is governed by entropy, the cosmic law that dictates everything moves from order to chaos. You can scramble an egg, but you can never unscramble it. Because of this, we comforted ourselves with a simple philosophy. The past is set in stone. The present is happening now. The future is unwritten. But nature does not play by our human rules. When we zoom in past the world of trees, planets, and human bodies, down into the subatomic realm, our comforting reality completely dissolves. At the quantum level, the laws of physics are perfectly symmetrical. They don't care about forward or backward. A mathematical equation for a particle moving forward in time works exactly the same way if that particle moves backward. For nearly a century, physicists assumed this was just a mathematical quirk, a strange anomaly of the microworld that had no bearing on our daily lives. They assumed there was a hard wall separating the bizarre quantum world from the solid, predictable macro world we inhabit. They were wrong. Imagine walking through a forest. You come to a fork in the path. You can go left or you can go right. You choose left. The moment your foot steps onto the left path, the right path ceases to exist for you. That is how the classical world works. But if you were a quantum particle, you wouldn't just take both paths simultaneously. You would walk down the left path, realize a mile later that there was a dead end, and reach back in time to change the moment you stood at the fork, forcing your past self to choose the right path instead. To the human mind, this sounds like madness. It sounds like science fiction. But in the late 20th century, a visionary physicist named John Archibald Wheeler realized that this madman could be tested. He designed an experiment so radical, so deeply unsettling, that technology wasn't advanced enough to actually build it. He called it the delayed choice experiment. And when scientists finally ran it, reality broke. To understand how the future rewrites the past, we have to look at the infamous double-slit experiment, but with a terrifying twist. When you fire a single photon, a particle of light, at a barrier with 2 slits, something impossible happens. If you don't watch the photon, it acts like a wave. It travels through both slits simultaneously, interferes with itself, and leaves a wave pattern on the back wall. It exists in a state of pure potential, a ghost-like superposition of all possible realities. But if you place a detector at the slits to see which specific hole the photon passes through, the photon instantly changes its behavior. It stops acting like a wave. It acts like a solid little bullet, passing through only one slit or the other. The mere AC. Too much looking forces the universe to make a choice. This alone kept physicists awake at night. But John Wheeler asked a much more dangerous question. What happens if we let the photon pass through the barrier first, let it decide whether to be a wave or a particle, and then, at the very last microsecond before it hits the final back wall, we decide whether or not to look at it? Think about what this means. The photon has already traveled through the slits. It has already made its choice. It is either a wave that went through both, or a particle that went through one. It is already on its final approach to the target. In the early 2000s, using ultra-precise lasers and fast-acting mirrors, physicists finally executed Wheeler's dream. The photon was fired. It passed through the slits. Only after it passed the barrier did the scientists turn on the detector. If our understanding of time was correct, the detector should have caught the photon in the middle of its choice. Instead, the universe did something that sent a shiver down the spine of the scientific community. If the scientists chose to turn the detector on after the photon passed the slits, the photon behaved like a particle at the slits. If they chose to leave the detector off, the photon behaved like a wave at the slits. Let that sink in. The measurement made in the future determined how the particle behaved in the past. The photon at the slit somehow knew whether or not it was going to be observed a fraction of a second later. It altered its past behavior to accommodate a human decision that hadn't happened yet. This wasn't a glitch. It has been replicated over and over again across vast distances with increasingly complex systems. It is a verified, fundamental truth of our cosmos. It is called retrocausality, the future causing the past. If you think this only applies to tiny, irrelevant particles in sterile laboratories, you are missing the terrifying scale of what this implies. Wheeler Hymns, Elf, took this experiment and scaled it up to a cosmic level. Imagine a quasar, a massive, blazing galactic core billions of light years away from Earth. This quasar emits a single photon of light. On its journey toward Earth, that photon encounters a massive galaxy. The gravity of that galaxy acts like a cosmic lens, bending the light. The photon must make a choice. It can swing around the left side of the galaxy or the right side. For billions of years, that photon travels through the freezing void of deep space. Empires rise and fall on Earth. Dinosaurs walk the planet, turn to dust, and humans evolve. Finally, tonight, an astronomer on Earth points a telescope at that specific quasar. They set up an apparatus identical to Wheeler's delayed choice experiment. They decide on a whim to turn a detector on. The moment they flip that switch, they force that specific photon to have chosen the left side of the galaxy instead of the right side. But that choice happened billions of years since ago. A casual decision made by a human being drinking coffee in a modern laboratory just dictated the trajectory of a cosmic event that occurred before our planet was even formed. We are not just passive observers drifting down a river of time. Our actions today are echoing backward through billions of light years, carving out the history of the ancient cosmos. If a conscious decision in the present can materialize the history of a photon billions of years in the past, what is happening to your own life? We like to think of our brains as biological computers processing sensory data. But the human brain is made of the exact same atoms, electrons, and quantum particles as Wheeler's photons. Your thoughts are driven by electrochemical signals, by particles shifting states, by quantum processes occurring within the microscopic microtubules of your neurons. If quantum particles are bound by retrocausality, then your mind is bound by it too. Think about the most pivotal moments of your life. A sudden, unexplainable urge to walk down a different street, leading you to meet the love of your life. A gut feeling that told you to reject a job offer, saving you from a company collapse. A sudden flash of creative inspiration that seemed to appear out of absolute nothingness. We call these coincidences. We call it intuition. But what if intuition isn't a calculation made by your subconscious mind based on past data? What if intuition is actually a memory? A memory from your future self, bleeding backward through your timeline, trying to guide your footsteps. Physicist Hugh Price, a leading authority on the philosophy of time, suggests that if retrocausality exists, the universe is not a series of dominoes falling forward. Instead, it is a vast, interconnected web where the future and the past are locked in a continuous, eternal handshake. Every choice you make is a negotiation between who you were yesterday and who you will be tomorrow. Imagine your life timeline as a massive, sweeping architectural blueprint. You think you are drawing the lines frame by frame, day by day, but quantum physics suggests the blueprint is already finished. You are just tracing over the lines. And if the future version of you encounters a catastrophic event, an existential crisis, or a moment of profound revelation, that massive wave of emotional and physical energy doesn't just dissipate into tomorrow. It ripples backward. It vibrates through the timeline, generating a low-frequency hum that your present self perceives as anxiety, inspiration, or a sudden, unexplained shift in direction. You aren't just walking toward your destiny. Your destiny is actively dragging you toward it, pulling on the threads of your nervous system, forcing you to make the exact decisions required to ensure that future comes to pass. This leaves us with a profound, almost haunting realization. If the future can alter the past, then your current struggles, your current pain, and your current confusion are not meaningless. They are being calibrated. You are being shaped by a version of yourself that has already survived the storm. You are not a victim of a random, uncaring past. You are the creation of an intentional, inevitable future. The next time you stand at a crossroads in your life, paralyzed by a difficult choice, take a deep breath. Listen closely to that quiet, undeniable voice in the back of your mind. It isn't just an echo of who you used to be. It is a message from the person you are destined to become. They are looking back at you right now through the quantum mist, whispering the answers, and desperately waiting for you to catch up.